Okay, so this afternoon, we're going to talk about just a little bit about theory about static and dynamic analysis, introduction, and then look at product that we've developed, CM first, for analyzing large-scale systems. Originally, it's developed for a COBOL, but COBOL in the mainframe, but we've adapted it to CA Plex, CA2E, and IBMI, because that's really our main customer base. Okay, so let me talk about a little bit about that. Here's kind of the overview. And we developed this product really with an aim towards helping people in two camps: the people that are having to maintain large-scale systems. A lot of shops actually devote 90% of their IT budget to software maintenance. That doesn't leave a lot of extra money, 10% for new development or doing new things or enhancements and all that kind of thing. So if you can cut that piece of the budget down, that really frees up a lot of time and energy to spend on new things. So that's one aim of the product, is just helping people maintain their 2E, Plex, or COBOL system more effectively. And then other people are looking at modernizing. They're looking at, some people are looking at rewrites. That's one avenue where understanding what's in the existing system is very important, because you want to make sure that you cover all the business rules that are in the existing system when you migrate to the new system. It also goes for a package. Oftentimes, packages do not cover 100% of the requirements you have. In fact, I guess it's rare that it does cover 100%. And then in case you have to either maybe keep part of the existing legacy system operating while the package goes into place, or you need to do enhancements into the package, get the software vendor to do the enhancements. So it's useful to know what the gap is as part of that. Another way we help is people that are automatically replatforming. We have a software process that takes 2E and migrates to Plex. So you can have a 2E generating RPG that's migrated to Plex and generating Java. And spend a lot of time on that, and it's highly automated. But even at 95%, if you got a 100 million line of code, like a lot of 2E systems are, 100 million lines of generated code, or not many, but I'm aware of several that are that large. And if that's 95%, that's that's a lot of code. That's millions of lines of code. So what do you do with that part of the system that you can't automatically migrate? Well, you have to do something with it, rewrite it, or figure out some other workaround. So we help people identify the parts of the system that can't be automatically migrated. Or maybe it just means modernization might just mean putting a web front end on something, or putting an API layer on top of your existing RPG 2E system. So a lot of use cases around modernizing as well. So that's the aim of the product. And here we're looking at kind of an overview of this static analysis tool. Okay, so evolveIT is in the middle. It runs on a Windows platform. It runs mostly as a web application. There's still always a client server component that we do utilize mainly for the mainframe, but as far as IBMI goes, it's really all on the browser. So it's a browser system. The back end is in a graph database. I don't know if you saw Kiyoshi's presentation on that, but it's, I think, a really interesting way to model data. It's different than relational, lets you do things like code analysis much more effectively than a relational database can. It's built to store millions and millions of triples, rows that show how code is connected to each other, how code is connected to other components like databases. So we take code in, we parse code. So we're parsing COBOL, RPG, and then all the associated languages with that you need. Like if you're going to parse IBMI COBOL and you want to make sense of a system, you also have to understand DDS, right? So we parse DDS as well, DDS for screens and DDS for databases, everything else. And more recently, in the last year, we've added CA2E, CA Plex, and Lanza models to the mix. So we're also parsing the 2E model in a way. We're using an API that we've built to extract information from 2E at the code level. We marry that with scanning of the RPG or COBOL that generated. And then Plex, same concept, using the model API. And then Lanza, that's a recent addition. But yeah, we're also going to the Lanza model. And is anyone using Lanza in the room? Curious, because come across Lanza and TUI used together kind of often, actually. Okay, very good. Marry that together, and we have a user interface where you can look at the code, and Mark will be taking some exercises on that. And then out the back end, you can get information out of the product. You can get component connectivity and put that in whatever system you want to put it into. It comes out as JSON or XML. And you can also get information about security or business rules, or all sorts of things. So whatever you want to write to get information out of the system, it's a very open system from that respect. Okay. Okay, so static versus dynamic analysis. Getting kind of geeky. Anyone know what, well, I'll just go into it. So static versus dynamic. A lot of people think, well, static, that sounds like, if you have static versus dynamic, the dynamic must be better than static, right? Because dynamic is moving and static is not. Well, yeah, not exactly. So static analysis really is the code structure at rest. So it's scanning, parsing source code, okay? So you need source code to use our product. We have very little dynamic built in, but dynamic analysis, on the other hand, is really looking at a running system. And not that one is better than the other, just different, really. Static is certainly simpler. Maybe I'll go into that. And dynamic is maybe more complicated. Which one is better? It really depends what you're trying to do. So let me look at that. So dynamic, again, is looking at running code like a debugger would. And the pros of that is some bugs that are really difficult are only going to show up under dynamic analysis. See the code actually run and see how the data structures and data is being put together and how it's being executed. That's the only way to see some types of bugs. And it certainly shows you maybe the most problematic things you might find, because it's going to show what's running most often, typically, because you're going to have to actually get the code to run that section of code to actually see what's happening, right? So very difficult to run every line of code in the system. It's what they call test coverage. Very difficult to do test coverage over 100% of a system. So I guess it would be impossible to. You only see the paths that you're able to execute automatically. So you're not going to get everything with dynamic analysis, and you won't get everything with static either. But it's also very difficult and expensive to run all your code. It's very, very difficult to get all the test cases together that will execute all of your code against all of your data scenarios. I guess that'd be impossible to do. So we're focused on what's more possible to do. Static analysis, again, very fast to analyze. So we can parse, I don't know, people generally parse like 5 million lines of code at most an evening. Would that be to change code or change modules? That can be done in minutes or hours. When you have 100 million lines, that's going to take overnight, certainly, to do it the first run. But compared to dynamic analysis, it would take years to set up test scenarios for dynamic analysis. So it's much quicker, but it may not show everything, or it may show too many paths. If you have like a dynamic call situation where the code is trying to figure out what program to call, and that literally could be any program name. Maybe you'd have one process executing every other process in the system. So can be too much information sometimes, static analysis. So I think considerations with the tool. I'm sure everyone's using some kind of tool. Like what are you guys using now for analysis? If only the built-in. Yeah.
X analysis.
X analysis, okay. That's another static analyzer.
Right.
Option 25 or
Yeah.
you on a function.
Yeah.
You want a function, that's a comp.
Yeah. Built into TUI product. Yeah. So lots of ways to do it. Really, it comes down to when you're trying to pick a tool, what are you most concerned about? You're concerned about false positives and negatives. It does have to be highly accurate, right? If your product or your tool you're using requires a lot of thinking time, and it's really just like busy work time for the analyst, does that mean that you can't really do a good job of analysis, or maybe it's not even necessary. And then the scale, do you have a lot of code or do you have just a little bit? If you have just a few programs that you may have written yourself, then obviously you probably don't need a product. Just don't, you know where the problems are. But when you got millions of lines, 100 million lines, there's no way that you can know what's there. It's just not possible. Your application changes slowly or rapidly, and yeah, large system, there's no way you can understand the entire code base, I would say anyway. I guess maybe there's some experts here that might differ with me, but yeah, it's just really hard to do. So I think that's, you know, picking the tool comes down to how important these questions are. And we built this product to handle the largest systems. I think that's one differentiator, is we originally built it for mainframe. Many customers on the mainframe are well over 100 million lines of code. On the IBMI, you know, not quite the scale, but again, we've seen 100 million line systems, certainly. Okay, so 2E use cases that, you know, I think are more difficult to do with the built-in 2E product, 2E capability. Now, I don't know, I guess we'll show some of these in the exercises. But, you know, visualizing the call graph with the data access across, you know, on one diagram, I think that's something that you obviously can't do with the built-in tools. And I think with other products, it may take a while to even do that. May not be 100% accurate too. Any relationship diagrams, nice to have, not something you can do in green screen. Text search across the action diagrams using regular expressions. Looking at usage of field columns and conditions. You know, some of that's built in, try to make it easier, this product. Other replatforming source certainly is an area that be used for this. We have some, you know, customers use that for a variety of things. You may, like I said, implementing a package where you may have a financial system, you need to take out all the links to your built-in financial system and point it to the package. Things like that can be more easily accomplished. And then more technical here, the impact of work fields within the function scope. So you have an external function, you have it calling several internal functions, you know, and those work fields are modified, you know, far down the call graph, the internal functions. That can be a really difficult bug to fix. And, you know, that this is something this product can help you with. Detect if there's a UI function within the call graph. This is used when we're trying to migrate from, say, 2E to Plex to Java. If that Java batch program is running a batch when it's been migrated, is calling a UI function, that's going to hang up, and that's not going to be good. So we can detect that automatically if there's a UI function within, you know, a call graph that may be several hundred programs. Listing objects impacted by a field change, always difficult. And then functions that are impacted by an internal function change, another use case. So yeah, we'll go through some of these today, and there is a free analysis. You can upload your 2E model, and we can give you back the parsed model in the tool, and you can use that for 30 days with no charge, and kind of decide if that's useful for you. So you'll be able to access these links, I think, for what? We said 30 days or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so, and also you'll have, you know, the model we have, our training model, you'll have that for 30 days as well. So, yeah, any questions or go right into hands-on? Looking at the product at least. There's something in the chat.
Yeah, it's not a.
Okay, all right, cool. And then go ahead, Mark.
All right. I think my screen should be coming up. Oh, you have to stop sharing.
Oh, do I?
Then I can. You can't. Okay. Oh, internet,
No,
No.
I constantly drop
It's weird.
gotta
Yeah, it's
put stuff off my screen here.
Over here, it's been okay for me and I've got solid signal.
I have a solid signal.
Oh, and it's just dropping?
Yeah.
Doesn't like you then, I guess.
All right, so here's my screen. I have evolveIT showing. And what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to give you a little walkthrough of what's what, because it's a little different than going to the green screen and knowing where everything is in 2E. Of course, when we first got into 2E, it took a while to figure out where to go to. So I'll start here with the summary. And on this screen, what you can see is you can see some interesting information. Okay, so this is a production model that I'm using, and it has 18,000 constants being used, 18,048 to be more exact. So right now, I'm not going to see where all it's being used. It's just giving me, at this point, it's a really high-level summary. But sometimes when you're asked some questions about a model in general, you can come here and you can see, oh, this is what it's all about. Okay. And tables, there's 1,125 tables in this particular model. And there are 4,457 views or logical files. Now, you'll find that this is all sort of Windows-based as far as the language goes. So you're going to see views versus logicals and stuff like that. So, and then you can actually go and get more information and see a little bit more. You can see the physicals, the span. There's 99 spans in here, resequence, retrieves. So it really gives you a very quick update about what there is. If you did this with 2E, I mean, yeah, you can get all this information, but it would take a little bit more time than this to actually get it. So let me go back to the previous screen here. Okay, so now some of the other things, we have entities. So entities, in 2E, you define entities, which basically become files. But you can see the different entities that are created. We'll go ahead and look at more on that. And you see the different names. You see the entity that is the most often referred to within the code. You see the entity, let's see, most often referencing, which one is referencing most. So the header. So this is a GL system, so that's why you'll see like AP and AR and different things like that. So I figured a GL system would be something most of us have some exposure to. And then functions, we have 20,971 functions in here. And that's a fairly nice number. And get some more information and we can see, well, you see there's a green screen functions, and then we have, this doesn't define it quite as carefully in the graph, but if you come down here and look at the function type, there you can see the create objects, the display trans, the delete objects. You can see the basic numbers for each type of function that you have right within this summary here. So, and then you can see all the ones that have UI and those that don't. So you can basically find your screens that way. And then you can find the number of reports that you have. Which ones are the biggest, basically with the most lines of code, and the functions that are called the most. So here you can find the most, if you're looking for something that's having problems, that could be in some of these that are called the most. So it gives you a nice overview of that. And here we can go down even more. Let's see, complex set count. John, you can give me more. You know what they use for the complex set count? Actually, there's zeros for everything. So some of this information, because we use this for a lot of different systems, we use it, for 2E, Plex, COBOL, RPG. Some of these don't necessarily apply as directly to 2E. So you'll find some of this that comes out with zeros.
I think it's set statements,
Set statements, okay,
like that's complex conditionals of the next.
okay. Yeah, in this case, we're coming out with zeros for all those in this particular model. Okay. And then if we had other languages, like if there was COBOL, we have a little CL, we have a little user source. So you can see the different counts by language as well. So all of this is in our summary area. So it gives us a nice summary of what's going on in this model. Any questions about this specific area before we go on?
It was, oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, can you filter this by like application area?
Not by application area yet. That's something that I think would be really great to have, because some people are good at using application area. Some people are not, but there's a lot of other ways to filter. So
There is a way to segregate functions. I don't think it's not automatically by application area, but you can upload lists of functions and assign that to a subsystem. So you could do that semi-manually or develop a process to do that. It's not built in to do the application area though.
Okay,
Yes, that's a great idea though.
yeah, that's a great idea. Yep. Okay. So any other questions before we move on?
Why the slight difference between the table count in the DB schema block and the entity count?
For right now, some of your internal sign-on tables are included in there.
Oh, okay.
So the
Yeah.
stuff that begins
With star. Yeah,
Does it differentiate? I can't be on the
yeah.
thing. Does it differentiate between reference capture and structure? So what are actual tables versus what are structure tables?
I believe so. When we look at the tables down farther, let's be sure to look at that. Bring that up again when we're down there.
Yeah, that's what I thought it might be, because it's not a big number. It's
Mhm.
what, 8?
Yeah. And this is actually one reason we're bringing this to you, this conference, because we want to have input. You know, how are some good ways to divide this data? I mean, so yeah, any of your input will be helpful. Now, I don't know if this particular model, they don't use the TUI menu, or they don't have a menu of their own. It's actually going directly into the application from a command line. So I don't have a menu here to show you, but if there was, it would actually show you the starting point, and it would show you the menu in this case. So
Is it going to capture situations where, like in Mapix, all the menus were actually display files run by CL programs?
if that is given to us as a menu, we could define that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Represent a database, there's a CSV import for menus, so you can, if you can put it to a CSV from the whatever
Oh, okay.
database that menu system is running from,
Yeah.
if that's possible, then
Yeah.
they could be loaded up.
Yeah, because what they did is they didn't use menu objects
Mhm.
in the system.
Right.
The screens were all just pure display files, and then just the CL program running them.
Yeah.
So if it's data driven, if you can extract that data, then it can be loaded in.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
automatically, but.
Yeah. And actually, we have one of our customers that's what they do. They use all display files and so forth.
Yeah.
And we brought their menu into this.
Okay.
All right. So now we come to what we call the object browser. And this is where you start getting into the analysis of the whole thing. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at this. Again, because this is used for TUI and for other types of systems. Some of these will apply more specifically to TUI. Others will not be as useful for us. But function, obviously, we all have functions. So that's going to be a big one. It's harder to see some of this on my screen with different things in it. I usually use a 32-inch monitor. And with the 32-inch monitor, you can see a little bit more stuff. So we have to scale it, yeah. And then you have to So I'm gonna just look for a function that has work in the name, in the description, whoops, in the description. Let's get back over there.
Try to scale your browser.
Well, it's actually at full size.
Within Chrome, see,
Yeah.
it doesn't screw things up, but try it. Usually works.
Okay. There, that looks a little bit better. Okay. So I'm going to put a description. I'm going to put work in here, and automatically a lot of options show up just by entering the work. But I want to actually get back over there. It's always fun working on a system that's not what you'd normally work on. So, okay. So I'm going to go back in there. I'm not going to select what it has there. I'm just going to go ahead and do a search. In this case, because work is a common thing, there's going to be a lot of data that shows up. But I wanted to show you how that shows in. And it just contains. So here are a lot of different functions. Now, if you see down here on the bottom, I can hit this caret and it goes up so I can actually see more data at one time. So here are all these functions that contain work. You'll see some that have a name that is a number. That number is actually the ID that we have, that TUI knows it as in the database. And so that's going to be more for like your retrieve objects, delete objects, all that kind of stuff. So because all the internal functions don't have an actual name, specific name, a generated name, we use the TUI name in there. Now you'll see that there's like, here's an external function. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you some things you can do from this point. I haven't particularly looked at this external function, so we're going to sort of look at it and see what information we get. First, I'm going to show forward detail. And this gives me a little summary about the function. It gives me the actual function name. It gives me the description. Here it's an execute external function. It tells me what language this has been generated in. And it gives me, it's just in a standard function group. And then let's see, if it had direct access update or create, it would actually give that information. Plus, it also gives a bunch of functions. There's 182 functions that this function is used by or used in, or calls, yeah. So in this case, it may be a pretty interesting one to look at as far as there's gonna be lots of data in a call graph for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna show it to you as a sample, but this, typically you're not gonna wanna do a full call graph if you have 182 functions, because as I'll show you, there's gonna be a lot of data that shows up. So when you're doing your work, you're going to typically be picking functions that you know that are going to be have a limited call to begin with. You're typically going to be starting at the beginning or the end of a call graph. And then, yeah, look at, I didn't realize it would take this long to show all these. But that's because there's a lot of data in there.
Is this grabbing the data live off the model, or has it already crunched the numbers?
Yeah, look at this call graph, yeah.
It's already parsed it.
Yeah, what we've done is we actually use the API to bring data into evolveIT. So it has the graph database. So all the data is actually sitting inside the graph database. And then when we're doing our research here, it's pulling the data directly from that database.
Okay, so it needs to be updated. If I were to make a change in the model, I'd have to do an update for this to work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That is correct, yeah. So here you can see, I'm going to see if I can find the So here is the end. So we're ending at this logical, or this logical. So basically through this process, if we were trying to figure out how this logical was updated, we could go through here and we would have all these different paths that are updating or are calling this logical in the end. And I can go and see, I can go forward from here and see, well, what is this logical doing? Okay, it's going to the physical. It's based off of this physical, but I don't see any actual data updates to this. So I know that I'm accessing data from this logical file that is based on this physical file. And here's the closest function to doing that. So then this function, which is a retrieve, I can actually go in and I can find out what the parameters are into this function. So what I'll show that one again, because it's a little newer function. It's you just click on your node, and then there's a lot of different things you can look at in here. So one is if I click on this little notepad, I can see it's a note that we put in here that tells you the input and output and both the parameters that are being used for this particular function. If I go here again, I can actually go, if I click on the A, I can look at the specific section of code that is being used by this. So here you can see that we're doing a create API to broker. So it's going to a create object here. And then after that, you see where it's the user point after it's after update. So that tells me that from that code that somewhere before here, there actually is an update taking place. And you see here is there's only one external function that is calling this internal. So here I'm sort of starting to get a path without ever really looking at the code of what's happening, where's data being accessed, where's data being updated. And we'll go on with this external function. Let's see the data, the information here. And here is the action diagram code for this specific area on this external function. And we can see where it's calling this with the internal, with the parameters. So it gives us some more information about what's happening. Some other information I can get here is I already have the backward path and everything, so I wouldn't have to go here, but there are options to show backward going. If I click on this left arrow, it's going to be going backward. If I click on the right arrow, it means I'm looking at a forward path. And then if I didn't want to see something like, because this is so busy, I don't want to see everything. Well, I don't want to see this one, so I'm going to just click on this eraser, and I'm going to remove this. So now I removed a path that I don't need in my process, my analysis. In this one, I could do that for a lot of these because I probably wouldn't need them. In fact, because I'm looking at what's happening for this logical and physical, all these ones here, I could go ahead and remove. So I can go here. And now as I do this, my document, my drawing starts getting a little bit less busy. Of course, we have so many in this case that it's going to be hard to remove it all.
So for that use case, you could go to path between and just instantly.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's another good one. So let me go ahead and find this particular function. Let's see, can I grab the name?
Grab the name of the view.
Yeah, I'm going to start from the external function and go to the view. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and search. Instead of looking for just work, I'm going to go ahead and look for a name. And then I'm going to search for that. Okay, here's that specific external function we were just looking at that goes to there. Now you see it's a lot less. There's that logical that we go to. There's actually a couple logicals. So I'm going to go to
Question. Come on, chat, I can answer.
okay.
I guess the question was, does it just work for 2E or does it work for, I guess, maybe hand coded? That's a great question. So it does work for COBOL, RPG, and all those hand coded languages on the IBM I. Some of the capabilities are different, I guess, depending on what you're doing. So it does do analysis for hand coded code as well. It's not going to have obviously action diagram and things like that. You just see the RPG and COBOL directly. Some of this code flow analysis you're seeing here is also different. So yes, but different is the answer.
CL too?
It does parse CL and it gets basic information out of CL. Yes, call statements, database access, if any.
So here what I did is I did a code block, which starts at this external function and it goes to these create. We had seen that there was some create in there. So a code block, if I go back to my function, here's the code. Well, this is that block of code. And now this is what it looks like visually. So it's just that code block that we saw in here. This is something Koshi just, I don't know if you saw this, but he added that recently. So rather interesting. So here's my code again. And you see there's my otherwise, I have my case statement, and then we go out and do some calling some functions. So here again, I'm going to go ahead and here's my code. Here's my case statement. Here's my otherwise. And here's my case, and then I'm doing my calls. So you can see this both visually and in code now when you use like a code block. So there's different ways to analyze this and look through what you're trying to discover. So I'm not going to go through everything for functions, but as you go through the exercise, it'll introduce you to a little bit more. And then the best thing is to get on here and try some of your own analysis. But now we're going to go ahead and look at the database schema. And let's see. I'm going to ask for something that contains GL since we know this is a general ledger. I'm going to go ahead and description contains, so we don't have any specific file that contains GL. So I'm gonna just do a look for
I'm
what?
guessing work.
Work, yeah, there's probably gonna be something with work. Yep, there's several here that have work. Okay, so I can pick from here and then it will just put it in there, and then I select from the search, and it takes me directly to this physical file. And I can do a forward search. And this gives me the basic information when I look forward from this.
Columns.
The columns from this. I can also do what's called a backward, and that will actually try to go and look, see where this is used from. So in this case, it's a work file, so it's probably not as interesting that way. Okay. So now you also still have all these capabilities for call graph, neighbor, full. I'm going to go look at neighbor. And in this case, it'll just pictorially give or graphically give you the physical and all the columns that are used within that physical. It tells you here the red one is a key. One thing you can do in all of your graphs is there's these like column and DB, different options here, depending on what you're looking at. If you click on one of them, it'll make that one group disappear. So that's another way to clean up your view while you're looking at something. I wanted to make my database disappear. So just help you in viewing things. And again, I can go into my database, my file. I can look at, well, is it being used by anything else? Well, there's 6 base views based on this table. So there's these 6 views. So I could add all of those views. If I want it, if you're doing a analysis on a file, that's one thing you're going to want to do is you would want to go look, well, what are all these logicals doing? Then from those logicals, you can go backwards as well. So let's see. If I click on the view graph, it just creates a brand new graph of this particular item. So it's, in this case, it just takes that. And then sometimes when you're working in a large graph, you might want to do that because you find, a file or some object out there that you decide, I want to get more information about this one, but I don't want it in the context of all the other data. So you can grab it and start your own, another research on that. Okay, some other things. There's a lot of things that you can do that I haven't actually gotten involved with yet. Let's see. You can actually have 2 graphs out there. Like, okay, I'm going to grab this field. I'm going to put it out there. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab another field and put it out there. And you can then somehow, let's see, you can join these together. Kiyoshi showed me about that. Don't see the option for that, but you can join. I've actually, oh, there it is, merge graphs. So I can merge, and it asks me which ones I want to merge. So I'm going to merge this one, the last 2 that I did, and there. So now, in this case, it's not real exciting, but that's another option. Everywhere that you have the graphs that you're working on, you can merge them like that. So then you can build up more information as you go. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of the database scheme. Columns and then fields. So the columns are attached to the schemas, and then your fields are basically attached to your columns. So this is, a lower level of what you're going to be looking at. So let's go. I think we have some domain fields. No. So here's, so you see these are your actual 4-character TUI names. So you can look and see if they're built on something else, you'd be able to do a backwards search. And if that built, yeah. So there's some data ready to send. These are all used. It gives you the context of where these are used. And it gives you, yeah. So there's some in the work context. This particular model uses a work context all over the place. So, yeah, I don't think they use local the whole time. So, but they were also the first people that bought sign-on in the United States. So they got into it before work.
Bad habit.
Yes, they got into all the original bad habits. So, okay. Then values, that's like your condition values. Yeah, so you can look up specific condition values. Again, the search is the same, so I'm not necessarily going to go through each one of these because I want you to get your experience doing them. But that's what it is. It's all your conditions. You can find out what conditions are out there. Constants, same thing. You can go, okay, so I want to find something that contains, actually, I'm going to use a regex. So you have a regular expression, or you can have just a regular contains, and I'm going to use the regex. And this one has several places where the number 1 is a constant. So I can go back and I can find where these are used. Okay, so this particular version of it is used in several places. Each of these is a different version of 1. So you'll have a little bit different results. And Kiyoshi and I were talking about this, and we were thinking, well, if it's 1, we should be able to have it all connected into one place. So we'll see. Oh, this one's used all over the place. You can see just by how long it's taking to find something. So part of it's going to be our internet connection. Part of it's just the amount of data, because this is a decent sized database. Like I said,
Where one used probably wouldn't be used very often.
yeah. Okay, well, this is good. It took too long to find it, so it slowed it down, stopped it for us. Okay. Batch control logic, I haven't found any for 2E, so that's
a Lanza construct.
okay. And then messages, you can actually search for your messages here. And entities. Business term, this is something that can be defined in another. Have you used a business term?
Yeah, it's a data dictionary concept. So,
Okay.
You can define like tax ID as a business term and then tie that to column definitions.
Okay.
Automatically, like look for all SSN, for example, and if it has SSN in the name of the column, then put that as tax ID. So that way you can see across your system where tax ID is used. So we have some customers using that for security purposes, need to mask those terms or track them, or just generally wanting a data dictionary.
On the messages, can you go back to that for a second?
Yes.
So I know, and especially in some of the older systems, that used to be one of the methods you could like submit a job, specifically calling,
Right.
so tying back to a program. So were you able to search like, in addition to first level, can you see second level text?
I think you can, but we'll.
That is,
yeah.
I don't know, unless.
I wouldn't be
unless you did last
surprised.
week, probably
yeah.
not. 'Cause that's something that pops out.
Okay,
But it is code.
it is code and it is a table in the model.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
So-
very easy to add. Yeah, I don't think we've done it.
Yeah.
I don't see it that much in newer programs, but in some of the older programs, older models. you
Yeah,
see
in-
second level text doing stuff.
Yeah. I know in this model, there's places where there's second level text. So. Okay, so Russ has a question. Let's see.
Major key.
Oh, okay. So you want to find a key. Okay.
Oh, you need to want to expand a key. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's always one of the biggest things that, we don't have a extremely good way to find that yet. I was talking to Kiyoshi about it, and we're trying to come up with a better schema or a method. Right. Okay, so what he's wanting to know is if the key, you're wanting to change a key to a file, like expand it. So how can you find everything that you have to recompile? So.
Like they're trying to expand social security number.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So you've got, like, for example, I've got a tag number.
yeah,
It's a random value. And it's 6-digit today, and I want to make it 7-digit.
exactly.
And okay, yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, so with 2E, we're going to do a usage and a usage and a usage, and until we go and think we found everything.
and basically, well, yeah, because you'd really be, if you're doing domain fields correctly,
Mhm.
it should be pretty straightforward. And I'm going to
Yeah.
emphasize correctly and
It's a lot of work.
straightforward.
And
I could say it's a lot of work.
It is.
right, it is.
Really, I don't think you can, because I've got a field called tag number, and it's got references to the proper one, and I've got another field called number 6.0.
Yeah. So one question is, so this ties back to what Kiyoshi was talking about yesterday. He showed us some APIs, and there's one API that he has created that you can put the object name. So you'd find out what object you're looking for and give it, the 2E number, which is a surrogate number within the model. Yeah. And if you put that within that API, it will actually go through and find all the external functions it gets to the first external function level. And, if there's 10 of them, 20 of them, it finds those. And the next step was another question that came up is, well, can you generate a model list from this? So that's what we're hoping. That's our Kiyoshi and I would talk about. We've sort of been planning that could be our next step as we integrate the API into here so that you don't have to like copy and paste the number and all that. And then it would be able to generate a 2E list from that call to the API. So it's not in here yet. And, you have to always have the disclosure that, well, it may or may not show up, but that's what I'd like to see happen.
So just coming back to expanding the key, because that's a really interesting question, or expanding the field in general. And the answer is the information is all in the backend database, but in our big graph database, but getting it out is not as easy as we like to make it a lot easier to get out.
Yeah, and I think some of the question, I think the first part of the question is you can say, okay, I can find every reference to this field,
Yes.
Yeah.
but I can't find if some rogue moronic developer, and we'll just call him JK, went out and created his own field.
Yes.
And put the key in there and it's used, and didn't reference or anything else. I don't think there's an automated way for that.
Well, there is some raw machinery to do that. And we actually do it on mainframe COBOL. We have.
If you can do them, if you can catch the moves.
Exactly. You have to do data lineage. You have to trace the moves. And so we have the information. We don't have this implemented for 2E at the moment, but it's something that, we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the after.
Yeah. All right.
You might have something. You might already have to go.
All right, here's a.
All right. Can we merge? Oh, that's a good question because this particular customer that I'm working with, they have 9 models that all refer to each other. They have a central model, which is like a model that communicates between all of the models. So if you want to communicate from A to B, you have to actually go through model X. If you want to communicate from A to C, you have to go through model X. So that's where all the communication between all the different models takes place. So I would love to have this. So at the moment, we don't have it so we can put all the models together. We can do it with the source. So we could actually put all the source together into one application. So it'd be looking through all the RPG and it can connect all through that. But that would be looking through the RPG, not through the 2E model itself.
So definitely had multiple requests for that too. So it's high on the list in that respect.
So. Okay, let's continue on with questions as you have them. Feel free to speak up and talk, either display them in the chat or talk and give them that way. I see that there may be some more. Okay. I think we've gotten all the messages or questions so far.
John, can I ask? So, okay, so if this piques my interest, what's the next step? I would do a save file of my model and send that to you, whatever method, and you would crunch it and send back a database and this application for me to play with. So that's one question. And then the next question would be, show me the money. So what's the cost on all this?
Yeah.
How would I justify this to management that, it's just Russ and working in the background and 2E so it doesn't affect anyone else other than me. So how can I push that to say, management, you need to buy this tool?
So the evaluation process is as simple as we have a portal and you just have to create a save file. It'll send it to us. We restore it and parse it and send you back a link to your own repository. So that's really easy to do. And the second part of your question on the pricing, I mean, we put a lot of investment in it, but I'd still call it a beta product. And we do have a good beta program, so we could look at that for anyone who's interested, just to look at it, maybe not for full production, but to use it and give us feedback on what they think. We're open to that. So yeah, let's have a conversation afterwards.
Cool. I'd like to do that. Now, when you said the save file would be of the model, wouldn't you also need the gen library if you wanted the source for the source?
Yeah, I'm
user
sorry.
source
Yeah,
and stuff?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It depends what level of evaluation you do. We can just load the model. We can also load the model and the source, get better results.
And if you load this, you only need to send the source files. You don't need to have all your generated objects, just the source files from the, yeah. That saves a lot of space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. But I mean, we do have the one that goes through RPG, so we can actually analyze all the source RPG and CL by itself too. So yeah, you'll get a fuller view, like John said, if you have both of them. But one of the things that as I've been talking to Kiyoshi about this is, he says, comparing TUI and Plex, TUI is so much more researchable for him. It's so much more open to understand how everything works in the back end. So that's why he's been able to build these APIs and pull the data in so much better than Plex. I mean, Plex, we do have a Plex version, but I think the TUI, I think we're in luck because we're getting more information from the back end than the Plex guys right now.
You know, Plex has some complexity there.
Yeah, it has
Yeah, it's got an object inheritance and a lot
Yeah.
of stuff like that,
Right.
metacode.
And we don't have all that. We just have our templates basically in the code. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, what time is it now?
20 of 3.
Okay. Oh, we've gone pretty good. So what I'd like to do now is I think you guys all got a link, and if you didn't, I'm going to put a link up here for the exercise. It's pretty basic overall, but it's good to start with something that's not too complex. And let's see, there's my document. So if you go to https evolveIT tui.cmfirsttech.com, you'll be able to get to evolveIT, and there's a user and password to get in. And then there is the Hightail link. There you can download the document. If you haven't already gotten that link from the information I sent through.
Just you paste that. I don't have it either, so you pass.
Okay.
Pass in the.
It is in the email that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
When you
why I
registered.
didn't
When you re-registered and sent it out, it is in there.
Okay.
It's just below the well, it's right above the username and password part. There's a whole little block that says where to get the link, the Hightail link, and then the username and password.
I don't know why I didn't seem to get the email. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I thought I'd approved it for you.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm approved, but
So did most of you get the link? Anybody not get the links?
I haven't.
Okay. Any of you online?
Just paste in chat.
Okay, yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't come to me. It's probably in my.
Okay, if I can copy this, there it goes.
Getting it all, so it might take a minute.
That can't be reached.
Uh-oh.
You're not on the meeting.
Which site can't be reached?
CAT into it.
There we go.
Interesting. All right, let's try something else.
Okay, so I put the link in the chat to the Hightail, and I'll also put the evolveIT link in there. If I can get it.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't know if it's because it's within Zoom that it's not getting it very easily. There it goes. Okay, and there's the link to evolveIT. So you should both all have that. And you'll see a document. Basically, what I've done is I've given you a task. So let's see. Okay, so I have a scenario. I guess I didn't write scenario 1. I thought, yeah, there it is. Okay, so you have a scenario. So in this case, you're given the task to change the person file in your model. Your exercise below will be walk you through the analysis of this task. So what we're going to do first of all is we have navigation tasks. So you have a question here about to make sure that you're in the repository. I didn't show you guys how to select a repository because I was just looking. So let me show you real quick on evolveIT. So let's see. Okay, there's a little, you can't see it on the screen, but there's a little caret in the bottom right corner. And when you click on that, it shows you to select a repository. And so here you can go through and select different repositories. The one that we want is the evolveIT CMF in INS 34. So you just go ahead and click that. This is a really small model. You see there's only like, let's see, if I go to the summary up here. This thing's working as though I'm on a remote system.
Usually a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's like, come on, mouse.
Just close that.
I'm trying to close this. Yeah.
Huh.
Come on, get over there. And it jumps.
Okay. You're supposed to see.
Let's see. There we go. Okay. So dashboard. So the summary, if I just look at my summary like we did earlier, there's like, see, that's not 90 schemas. That's not, yeah, 38 entities. So there's just a few entities in this one. So it's a small one for us to work with here. So has anybody not been able to get into the repository or get into everything yet? So what you'll do, first of all, download the document and go up to evolveIT, go ahead and select the repository that you want to work with. And that is the evolveIT CMF insurance. It's for an insurance app and it's number 34. And then you'll get this small application. And then when you're working on that, we'll go back over to here and you'll have some objectives to fill out. So you have the scenario and then you have a little bit of information about how to get to it. Then we have navigation. And as you navigate, you'll come across questions and it'll tell you when to answer a question. And that way you'll be able to see how to go through, navigate evolveIT, and then answer some questions of interest. So
What do you want us to do? Put in a spreadsheet or something, or just?
you don't really have, this is more for your
Okay.
enrichment.
Yeah.
So I'm not if you want to just,
But we can if you want, I guess.
yeah. What we'll do is we'll take yours and we'll put it up on the board.
I'm not gonna write that all.
And then we'll have everybody grade yours and see if you actually got the right results.
Maybe I can copy and paste.
Can you guys keep this link and user ID password active after the conference so we could play a little more?
Yeah, you said a week, or is that the VMs?
Yeah, I think the VMs are a week, but this, I mean, this is something we have up regularly, so.
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Perfect, thanks.
And this one that we're working on, this is the best, this is the one that is neutral, so it's not customer dependent or anything, so. It's the best one to play around in. So if you have any questions as you're working, let us know. If it's all quiet, I'll assume that you guys are working hard and doing okay with it. I know when I first started working on this, it took me a while because, I'm used to the green screen and I had to go to this visual tool and it's taken a while to understand that. So.
Was this tool written in-house, John?
Great question. So the original tool was something we acquired that was from the mainframe side, but we've rewritten most of it in-house. Because the original tool was client server and we needed to have a web-based product, and also the original tool had a lot of C code, and we wanted to change that all to something modern like C now.
Did you write it in Plex?
No, yeah, it'd be nice, but yeah, it's not a relational database. It's a graph database, so not a good choice for Plex. But yeah, the backend database is really what makes it able to handle this volume of code. Otherwise, it's just in SQL Server, it just wouldn't work at all, or DB2, impossible.
And I think Kyoshi's able to build a lot of those APIs into it with the tool because of the tools we've chosen.
Yeah, sure.
So one thing I have found is because I usually work on a large monitor, it's a lot, I can see a lot more of the screen. So you want to resize. There's this little carrots you can use on different spots where you can expand and contract your views, different parts of your views. So that's one thing that helps a lot.
How do you save something from one screen to the other?
When you,
Okay, I've got the key field. Now I want to go to the field. Do I have to re-enter it again? Because if I just click it, I get this blank one and I have to remember what was there. I would have liked to picked it up from the database schema. See,
Oh, yeah.
you have me do this. Now, what if I could type?
okay, then you search for it.
Yeah.
All
Then you
right.
do that.
Yeah.
And now you want to do something with this.
Okay, so there's different things where directions you can go here.
Yeah, you want to go to you told me to go to the field.
Okay, so what I would, so here, what you want to do is go ahead and do a call graph.
Oh, okay.
And then let's do a full one. In this case, you're only gonna get a little bit, well, actually, there's that. And then these are all fields.
Oh, and you can go here and then you can
Yeah.
look at it.
And
All right.
those are columns, and then columns then go in becoming fields. So you have to go one step after the column,
All right.
and so then if you do it
Oh,
forward,
they're not in order.
no, they're not exactly in order. No.
Oh. All right, so now I gotta find the one I'm looking for.
You can make that bigger so you can read them as well.
Oh,
If you-
here.
That way also your mouse, if you do the wheel,
Okay.
it'll expand it and make it larger and smaller.
Well, yeah, but that did this over here. Oh, all right.
And then you can just use that, yeah, use your mouse to
Oh, all
move
right.
it around.
There we go. Ah, okay. Now what do you want?
And then try go, yeah, I think you're supposed to go forward on that, is it?
Yeah, go forward, the green arrow. All right.
Oh, okay, we already went to the. So we're already past what you're at.
Oh,
So in here, let's go ahead and go forward on that other arrow.
all right.
Yeah, right, no, right, that arrow down there.
Like 10 minutes more. All right. Oh, that one.
Yeah, use that and go forward on that.
No data available.
Okay, so then go back here. Try the top one on both of them. Full. Yeah, try going full backwards. And
What did you want to know? Said, okay, search, okay. Search for the key, okay, object browse field, search for the key field. Oh, it's
see,
not,
you're supposed to be in the field.
oh, just in the field and look for a person ID. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then
Yep.
I got confused by what you're trying to do. I thought that,
Okay.
all right,
Yeah, what I'm trying to, I tried to say which, so go ahead and
Yeah.
close that down. So you go down over the top arrow and click the little X beside it.
oh, this is what closes, okay,
Yeah.
that closes it up.
So now go to field.
Oh, and just put in and look for
Yep,
person ID.
that's
All
right.
right. Now I'm getting the idea of what you wanted me to do. Yeah, and person ID. Search. Okay, now do the, okay. And this shows me,
And there's information, it might be right there in front of you, or it might be that you have to keep going a little farther, depending on what I asked on that question.
all right. Let me see what you asked. Answer question 1. Search, okay, wait a minute. What are the 3-person table logical views?
So from that screen, you can find logical views. So if you go to the schema,
Oh, that's right, yes. Here they, okay, we expand this a little bit. Person table retrieval, person update. And yeah, person table retrieval, descending. And then there's a physical. Okay, yeah, okay. Now I see, okay, now I'm getting it, what you wanted me to do.
okay.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
That's all right.
I was probably reading too much into the exercise.
Yeah, because I wanted to take, there's different areas where you find different bits of information. And I mean, you can find some of the same information going different paths too.
Yeah, okay, so that, okay. Now select column. Search for column person by description. Okay.
I was trying to move it over. Getting it around. Yeah. Okay, go to the schema. And here you can find, oh, here, yeah. That's main field. Okay, then, yeah, and if you click on them, I think. Yeah, retrieve one. Right. Okay, if you click on it, it'll tell you. I would, I guess. Okay, I see. Yeah, there's a lot of different places to click on here. Yeah, I was gonna click on that. Because that is where I wanted to go. Okay. Got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
A little different getting around in this.
That's what we need to do. See what he's trying to do.
Let me know if you don't understand the questions you're supposed to be doing.
Question 1. Oh, okay. Okay, select the column.
Mark,
Yeah.
got a question.
What was this a part of?
Column navigation. Do the address effective date. All the way to there. That's your question.
Okay. Oh, there's no 2, is there? We'll make it up. Okay, so what were you got over to there? Show the column. Okay. So I want you to go into, I want to find out what field that was made from. What is the source field?
Oh, you're looking for the domain.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Try going forward and see if it.
Okay, column person ID.
Cool. We should be able to get to the field from there. There you go. Oh no, that's a table. You do a full, no?
Search for column person ID by description. Locate the column person ID. What file is this a part? Well, it's part of.
There it is. It's that bottom, that one right there. So if you do add all.
It's the same field.
Well, yes, I mean, it's a column.
I get it. You want to, we're going from
But
file,
they
here's
have
an
the
individual column, here's the actual
field that it's based on.
dictionary.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, what I was gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about evolveIT.
We were talking about evolveIT.
And there's.
We were talking about how to get.
Oh,
domain fee- oh, no,
yes.
removes.
Yeah.
Okay, so. In my previous iteration,
Mhm.
I was doing, I had no, there's code in there that scans looking for new statements. Because it's the one that's designed to turn them into email statements.
Yeah.
It should be all the code.
Oh.
That'll give you the ability to see the source and then identifying it goes all the way back
repeat.
to figuring out the name.
ACAASG.
And because a reference field doesn't tell you. the data type.
Yeah.
So you had to be able to find the reference field, back to the
Mhm.
field table, get the original domain, and go to the domain table. That's what got the actual. That's where it came up with that. So that should be what you're looking for.
Yeah.
To then sound. So tell you, like I said, it's the simplest thing. Just
Mhm.
a certain.
This takes a little, yeah.
All right, so.
That's why I'm gonna hold that. Totally can do this. Pretty sure that I can reverse engineer this so that that same logic that I use that creates. Converts.
Eight. All right.
They still work here. By allowing it to create the table as normal, but before it compiles the table. It's literally looking for all this. This is an ECH model.
Mhm.
I need to change this to be. So the char becomes bar chart.
Yeah.
The length stays
Okay.
the same.
Yeah.
It becomes more complicated. It's the vertical graph.
Hmm.
Because it does that, it puts the CC keyword.
Okay, yeah.
And with that, you know, have a table that is. You'll see all the variable characters in each other.
Mhm.
Okay.
Use 2 bytes to the size of the file. the size of the file.
Yeah.
And the model, it has to be 27.
Okay, yeah.
So you always have to define it for absolute size.
Yeah.
And double byte. 50 character for itself. Plus the variable field, which is 2 bytes.
Hmm.
That's what we're
Okay.
doing. And then
Wait a minute.
it in turn changes the underlying code to say, no.
I already did AD.
I think next conference we should talk.
I sent that
Yeah.
to Red
Yeah.
along with this is what it needs to be.
Mhm.
And that's why I get pissed about it, because I don't just go here. Here's an example to show you what you can.
Yeah.
The only thing that happens then is that you have to remember stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's still 8. All right.
Dedications is areas of the job that you're working, operating outside the green screen.
Mhm.
So if you're doing web services and things like that, you have to know what and pass in what language you're working with. Change. Well,
Search for column. Address affected to date by name.
job will define how the 400 sees the table. So you have to change the job and that's right. If you
Okay.
green screen,
Mhm.
you have to change it.
That's right.
It will. It's the same rules apply.
Yeah.
You have to have.
If you're doing web option, you mean?
Or doing web
Yeah.
option, I think it was.
Yeah.
You have a first page. There. That's what tells you.
Yeah.
Forward, how to determine.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, it was work.
What is
So, we know concept, we know how to prove the concept. that all
Yeah,
works.
it did. It did all work. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Who can sit there and say they built something that has a database that can take Chinese, Japanese, Polish, Spanish, and English in one single database?
Mhm.
and display it in sign on. And you don't have to write any code special.
Did you forget a question?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I want to know what the field is that a column is based off of.
oh, all right.
That's for question 2, right?
Yeah, so,
So you're gonna have to do a little bit more digging. Probably about 1 or 2 more clicks to get to it.
Should just need to do one more click.
oh, it's
have to
based
go-
off the address effective date, right?
You have to go full back.
Yeah, it's a 2-character or a 4-character field.
ABDZ or something.
Gotta go back one.
No, because the field is ACDZ and it's based off ABDZ.
Okay.
It's actually based off of ACDC.
Well, ACDZ is the effective 2,
Right.
and I'll bet it's based off the effective date.
Well, because you're looking at a column there,
Yeah,
so you need to find out what is it that makes that column.
well,
So if you
wait.
go,
oh, go here.
yeah, go here and you're gonna be able to look, you'll be able to do a click to get to it.
Here it is in sign on terms. You've done an E on the edit database.
Field is
relations for
column.
This entity. What is
At all.
the,
But you were there.
you want to see what does the. You have to go,
Yep, go ahead and do that.
let's see, for this, you'd say, okay, that's the field. I go back one.
Oh, add all.
7 from edit database relations to look at the fields. It's just an odd way of looking at it because from our terms,
It
from our
is.
terms, we know because we just have to drop the first 2 characters.
Exactly,
That's what
yeah.
we're looking for,
Oh,
but we want to show it as though.
oh,
I would have gone, oh, I've looked at the entity database relations,
oh,
and then I do an F7 to look at the list of individual fields.
Mhm.
I want to see it in the list of fields.
oh, yeah, I'm probably overthinking this.
You're overthinking a little bit too much. We're trying to just look at it.
All right.
I'm trying to make these ones easy.
It's, yeah, but you gotta remember, easy is the hardest thing to explain.
I know.
You don't want to ask people but this is so easy. Okay. I give you why that's so hard to explain.
Oh, and now I see the colors. Okay, all right, yeah, blue is a column and the
Green is
turquoise,
an entity, blue is a column.
turquoise is the field.
Yeah.
All right,
Just gonna tell you right now, if there's anybody who's colorblind, they're gonna go, yeah, but that's gray, gray, and gray.
Yeah, it's not, and I had to teach a guy that was colorblind and sign on, and he couldn't see the different sections. How in the action diagram?
That's why he gets angry at me because I have still got the habit. You can tell the code I've written that he doesn't have to look at
Uh-huh.
because I still have **C, **S, **I next to everything because I learned on green screens and amber screens.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the only way you could sit there and tell what it was by actually putting *** and the type of structure it is.
Mhm. Yeah,
And when it's hidden, of course, now everything's color coded, it doesn't matter, but before that, when you had something hidden, you didn't know what it was.
right.
So this allowed you to hide something and still make it clear for everybody else.
And someone that's colorblind, they can still get it.
all right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like,
They're not gonna,
our task to find every place that the person address table is.
So how's everybody doing today on this?
I'm getting the hang of it, but I see why you use a 32-inch monitor.
Yes, yeah. So we have a couple options. We can keep going and you guys can just keep working on the exercise, or, you can access it later and finish it up. And we can have Russ give us more information. I'm open either way, or we can chat for the next while.
No, he's still on
well,
the
if you want
call.
to chat, I actually have a couple, I was gonna show it off before for Russ. but
What is
There
that?
might be a couple of easier ways for some of your,
Oh, the SQL stuff?
yeah.
Yeah. You guys want to see some other SQL approaches to things?
I do.
You do? Okay. Because if it's quiet, I'm going to assume no. But Eamon, go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen.
And I gotta get back into the meeting.
Wow, he does have one for only $25 more. Okay. Let me do this.
Only 20
ahead. I got a battery,
Ah, okay.
battery.
All right, Eamon,
Okay, so that's me in here.
you should be joining.
Oh, while Eamon joins, I just wanted to circle back to something from yesterday.
Sure.
Because I played with this after we signed off last night. So I took my Y1, Y2 sys libraries, put them on my production machine, which doesn't have 2E.
Okay.
It just has the runtime. And I tried a few things. I tried the Y work file without license. Now it did fail initially because it said my YLUS lib does not exist.
Right.
But once I saved that and moved that to my production machine and just restored it, I can now do Y work file, Y2 call, asterisk M to change my sign-on menus, all on the production machine, which is unlicensed.
Yeah, pretty nice, isn't it?
So yeah,
All right.
you
Yes.
just need to make sure your YLUS lib is also there. And then you'd have to synchronize your model
Right.
overnight or whatever if you wanted to do the Y2 calls.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
We get more college students here.
And there was just a little 10 minutes I had left on my presentation if you wanted
Okay.
to see the rest of that as well.
Yeah, let's let Eamon do his thing and then we can go into yours. Yep.
If you want to go into his,
Oh, you're still doing something there?
no, I'm still trying to get everything to connect.
Oh, okay. All right, Russell, why don't you give yours and then Eamon will talk after that.
Okay, just give me a sec to set it up. Do you see the pumpkin head?
I do.
Okay.
Right in the
There is
middle of Austin.
Okay, so let me get to my last bit, which I think I was at 22:28. So when we last left off, I was showing you how I use FTP basically to bring the data up. Once the data is up on the IFS and then moved over to a flat file, I can convert it to a 2E file and then display the results. So I'm just kind of showing you here the text file that generates or that runs when I run the bat file to do the upload. Just a little trick here. What I did, if you see this part here, I'm retrieving the system name and then I'm calling the strpco command, which is the start PC command, allowing me to run local PC commands. So from the 400, I can execute the CL and it will go to my local PC and run that bat file and do the whole upload. Okay, so that's what I just wanted to clarify on this point. That start PC command is really cool. I do that for a lot of stuff now. So there's the upload there, and I'm just talking about the bat file and all that. So there's that start PC command, and then I just delete a flat file from QTemp. And as you can see down there, I'm just using SQL to load the flat file. Now the SQL part, because I do want to hear some more about SQL, because you guys opened my eyes about another functionality of it. But let me just show you this flat file. So you can see it's got a key and then just 256, because I use this file, this 2E file for generic data all the time.
Just thirsty for me.
And what I need to do is try and calculate a unique key, which is the the key, right? So it's just a numeric number. So I'll just take you through. I found an SQL statement that does this quite nicely. If I can get to that part of the demo. Yep, that was it there. So pause. So I put in this. This is for those who don't know, if I do row underscore number bracket bracket over bracket bracket, what that will do is generate a key in a sense. It just, there's my row numbers. So now using that insert that I had done in the previous example, I can now insert a flat file, make sure it's keyed so it follows 2E logic, and then insert my data right there into the flat file. Not really a flat file because it has a key on it for 2E reasons. But I thought that was neat, just this row number over scenario. So that's another little SQL trick that I picked up. Okay. And that would give me that same screen. Let me finish. Yeah, I'm trying to get to that screen now. There, that screen there. So that screen right now, it's being used to do an analysis of my pins and calling retrieve objects or whatever to get data to populate the rest of the fields. But that could easily be customers, and I can just populate customers and then have another function that'll do retrieve objects and get the customer address or whatever information you want. Just keeping that two field concept going. So back to my story. The story is they looked at that and they thought that was great and they loved it. But what they really wanted was to be able to look at this file inquiry screen, which is in production, that allows you to action these line items. But instead of over everything, can we do it over a subset? Okay, so what I did there with this apple pie, instead of having this apple pie the way it is, oops, and pulling in the data this way, the next thing is just going one step further. So this is production, and you can see this is my file. It was, oh, if you saw it quickly, I noted the logical file that's over that display file in production. Basically, stopped. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a create dupe object of the physical file, my header, and its logical that's on that display file into QTemp. Okay, so, and then I'm going to use the data that I just uploaded. I'm going to populate the QTemp file with that physical file and its logical. As this is doing it all, I'm just talking without even looking at what it's doing. See the concept? So now if I do that, when I run the display file, it's going to run over a QTemp file that has maybe 100 records instead of 10 million. And then they can action those items right there and then. So that's the final concept. So this is the way I did it. I think that I could clean this up in SQL, but right now I take the file that I uploaded from Excel or whatever. I do a receive file and I just copy the data one record at a time until into the QTemp file. And then I launch my program. So I'm doing this now in debug mode. Override, start the receive file process. And then the last part. So you're seeing two things you just saw on that trick. You may ask yourself, Russ, how did you do system request 3 and go into a command line instead? Because it's normally a work job. If you want to see how I did that, look at October's presentation of last year. Keep referring back to that stuff. I did a lot. I did a lot
Do you
last
ever
year.
go home at night or do you live with this thing? You're
I-
worse than I am.
I live at home since March 13th, 2020. I've been in this basement, and sometimes my wife brings me food.
I can see that.
So there you go. So mind the fact that it's an L0. It's because this is the first file ever written in 2E 25 years ago. So the retrieve object is actually an L0. It drives me crazy. But there's the idea. See, so I'm now using a QTemp file that's populated with the data I just pulled in. And now they can do everything, see exactly what's going on, action the items they need to. And then when they come out, it all just disappears and they're back in regular production world. So that was the final countdown. And then I had a couple of notes that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Things that I'm thinking of in the future. Maybe future presentations, I don't know. One issue I have, I'm putting it out there now to you guys. I'm assuming we're kind of on a just a quiet time. I know we're going to see another presentation in a sec, but ICS Courier, we're Canada-wide from West Coast to East Coast. So when you look at a display file on our screen, no matter if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, the date and time is always going to be Toronto time, right? And I wondered, and I think I might have even asked Broadcom if there is a function that's in every 2E generated display file or prompt record that I could call that will allow me to adjust this time based by going to a retrieve object, checking the user, checking what time zone they're in, and displaying the time in their time zone. This is something I'm trying to think of coming up with a workaround. I could probably do it through a preprocessor and just scan the source and change something to call a function to do that. But I'm throwing this out there as one thing that I'm thinking of trying to figure out how to do. If, I don't want to redesign the wheel, so I'm throwing that out there to the audience. Another thing was sliders. So a display file like this, it goes page up, page down, and it's normally 80 columns unless you know how to do this trick to make it 132 columns. But I actually am thinking now of trying to figure out how to go further. I want to be able to slide to the right, slide to the left, as I would if it was a SQL statement with a select star. And you could just F20 to the right and left. So my thought process is to take the file, this file here, and somehow do a display FFD to figure out the fields in the file, and then try to figure out how I can map those fields and then use substrings to bring them all in line so that I can move across to the right, to the left. I can change the field order, position, all that stuff that you can do in Windows. So that's my next kind of project to play with and try and figure out how to do. I'm never of the mindset of, it can't be done and move on. I'm of the mindset.
I tell you, thinking about your time thing, this is probably not what you're going to do because it would require regenerating every damn program you've got, which I don't think you want to do.
Right.
But
I'd like to propose doing a bi-weekly, not lightning thing, because as you can see, lightning is just, one collides on the other. I would just like to do just like what you guys are doing down there, getting together in a room and just tossing ideas back and forth in an open virtual forum for things like what I just proposed.
So Russell?
Yeah.
What you're really talking about then is trying to create a national user group.
Well, I was the president of the Toronto user group until I became the only person left here in Toronto. So yeah,
So
that
you're
would
the
be
president
it.
yet.
Technically, I was vice president, but yeah. But exactly. Somewhere where someone like me that's on an island, because Canada is an island, because I don't know anyone else that I could bounce ideas off of and just come up with some really cool stuff. Because me just paying Broadcom maintenance and getting tickets and they're saying can't be done, that sounds like a good suggestion.
Did we lose you?
It's not me, it's him. He, yeah,
Still there.
You're still there, but we lost your sound.
People are into this.
Okay, there we go.
So what do you think?
so Russell, a couple of things. Number one, just to jump back on some of your points, your date time thing, I can already tell you, you'll never get an answer from CA or from Broadcom on this.
No.
Because they won't have an answer for it, because it isn't really a problem with their system.
Mhm.
It's what happens is the standard call is get the system date and time.
Yeah.
So you're getting whatever your system's time zone is.
Yeah,
If you want to do something where, okay, this person's on the East Coast, this person's on the West Coast, this guy's in, you've got somebody in Quebec, so you've got 3 time zones going, you have to,
you have to figure out.
you have to call, you can call through an API that will allow you to do time zone adjustments. You can pass in one time zone, pass out another. I believe I know where I can get the code that's doing that. Because we were on a system that was worldwide, so when it was pulling things up, we needed to see things in the correct time zone based upon information. So a date in one table or a date time looking at things, you had to make sure everybody had the right same time zone.
Right. That's
So
what I need.
that's how that would be done. Then, as John said, you're going to have to, when it's all said and done, you're going to end up having to recompile your universe for at least every display screen. Because most likely what will happen is you'll have to replace the date time on the header footer with your own fields.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And therefore, you'll be responsible then for getting the time, doing this, and then displaying and writing it to those custom fields on your header footer.
Yeah.
The only good thing will be once you write the routine, you can then bury that into all of your templates, put it into all of your display functions, and it's one routine to always be the same for everybody, and then it's a one and done.
Right. Yep.
But as he said,
The
you got to
hardest
recompile
part-
your universe.
Yeah, the hardest part is going to be, well, depending on how big your universe is.
It's big. Big.
I've deployed, 1,700 screens in a single job. It's not the end of the world. It's just how much time you have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and then when you recompile the world, there's usually something that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always a risky.
It sounds like it's just him, so if you.
Yeah.
And then it goes past midnight. Their jobs are still showing as
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's starting to cause issues. Well, it causes issues. I basically tell them at midnight, everyone logs off. I was almost tempted to end QEnter at midnight and start it up again at 12:01. So that's the desperation that I have to deal with right now.
Here's another thing you should be aware of. Anytime you're doing something where you're grabbing the job date, don't use the start job date. Always use the timestamp. Grab the current timestamp, because Job date will always be whatever the job date was, the job started on.
That's right.
Timestamp is always the current timestamp.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
And you can move it directly into a date field. And that takes care of the rest of that. So you can just do a move from the job current timestamp to whatever date you're using, and you'll always get the current date regardless of the job system, regardless of the job date.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So
Thanks.
that's another one for those.
I'll try that.
So
Yeah.
the other one you were talking when you were doing your thing, don't do display file field description. Do select from qsys2.syscolumns for your schema database. That will always get you, that's faster and will get you, an easier way. You won't have to go through and do a lot of hurdles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you throw that into the chat, that command, if it's easy? But
Well,
yeah,
it's like one of those files you found, like sys_tools. It's sys_columns, isn't it?
Yeah, it's qsys2. Hang on. Syscolumns. And from there you'll get everything and then you can trim it all down, but it's got, be careful because the first things it'll show you, it'll show table schema and, table. And you want to go past that, you want to find system schema and system table. Because otherwise the first ones are variable character 128.
right.
The other ones are the actual 10 character object ones. You run it, it's a lot easier to work with that.
Great. Okay. I can play with that, see what I can come up with.
Yeah. Now I was going to show off.
Yeah. Go ahead and show yours, Eamon.
Mark,
Okay, so
we got the battery.
you were talking about your
Okay.
poor man's robot. I was in the same boat. So hopefully everybody is seeing my screen. And not yet. So my system must be a little slow pushing it up. Hang on.
No, I've got it.
I'm
Showing
seeing your
I
SQL.
want to look,
Oh.
you should be seeing a different screen.
Okay.
And yeah, it just dropped on me. So give me a second while it comes back. That's been a persistent problem for me here.
Oh,
But the drawback, Ken, is I have to be on the VPN to do this. So give it a second while it comes back. I'll just chat. I ran into the same boat, which wasn't going to get robot because it was overkill. IBM Labs wasn't giving out. What the hell was the name? We were one of those they had a poor man. They had their own robot one, which was
Yeah.
much nicer. So that one wasn't available, so I had to write my own. And you can do it without having to do all of the hoops with spool files and everything else. Pretty much anything you can think of when it comes to trying to monitor or access on your system. There are now SQL views or UDFs. Yeah, either there's views, UDFs, or specific tables that have access to all of that data. So one of the things I did is I've got a simple little ILE program here that eventually, when it comes up and I can stop vamping, we'll show you how you can do that with a single SQL statement.
did you say that's on CMF01?
This
is not.
I wrote this
Okay.
fresh. I wrote this when I found out we didn't have anything, and I was supposed to wake up and look at this, and that was not going to happen.
How does it notify? It just sends you an email?
It notifies. It actually sends an email to our help desk.
Oh, and then they notify you.
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah,
That way he can still sleep and he doesn't have.
Yeah, because you see, and while I didn't have robot save, I had alert and console. I think console is the one you're referring to.
I think.
Yeah, robot console is one that would monitor messages, and alert was the one that would wake me up at night.
So we have that, and we have a product that already takes care, we use for other emailing stuff. Son of a. You know, everything is connected. And
And you're still not able to get through?
yeah. Give me a second, I just had my whole system is crashing out. And here comes, there it goes, now it's trying to connect again. I'll let me in.
There you are.
This again.
So does anyone else have any tips and tricks that they'd like to talk about today? When Eamon's done with his, someone else can present some of theirs.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I'll show you a simple little SQL you can use to do spool files and out queues. All right, let's try this again. No. Now, show my screen. Show the screen. Okay, let's see how this works.
Says you started a screen share, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, you know. I see that I'm sharing a screen.
Says we're viewing your screen.
Now I'm watching for it to pop up there, but it does not seem to want to work at all, which is
track for mine. I'm on the VPN to the one. It seems to be working.
you're on and yeah, I'm on the VPN too. I have no problems. I'm fully connected. And nope, it just crapped out again. So while we attempt to get this to work. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, there's your
that's actually
SQL.
not a bad screen. Fortunately, it's in the middle of something. So what you are seeing is that bottom piece of SQL code that's there.
Oh, that we were looking at.
I am just batting 1,000 here. I almost want to go. Is there anybody in the innovation room doing a presentation in the big room?
Yeah, they're doing a class there.
Darn. Because I know that connection is rock solid. Wi-Fi, and I'm off the Wi-Fi, and even I'm on my phone.
Let me go over there into the break room.
Here, it's back up again. Let's give it the college try.
Use our office too, if you wanted to. It's like, I don't know, short walk.
It's the, yeah, I don't know what it is. I just, for whatever reason, cannot maintain a stable connection here, no matter what method I use. I am sharing again.
Yeah, it says you started a screen share.
Come on, baby, work. Nope. Okay, you're in the VPN, Ken, and you're in the meeting. Let's see if you can share your screen. And I'll work from yours. We'll give it a try. Let's minimize everything there. This up, screen share. I can't because I'm still trying to share.
So you can lock it up, but you can't show us anything. There we go. You're out.
Now you can share your screen.
Okay.
first thing I need. May take just a second. Use it as often as I do.
At least we can see it all.
Mine was acting up earlier, but now it's kind
Just so it doesn't act up now again, right?
Because, you know, I'm sitting.
Eamon's bad luck. So while Eamon's bringing this up, I have a question. How many of you guys use APIs that you've integrated into 2E so you can just call the API through a 2E interface or a 2E program? Maybe execute external, execute user source or something.
Never wrote anything that used an API through 2E. I've used APIs before.
Yeah. Because there's so many APIs out there on the 400 that are on, you know, on the IBMI.
Nifty stuff.
And I think we should, you know, Broadcom, well, when it was, yeah, they've talked about integrating some of those into 2E, but I don't know how soon that's going to happen. Maybe if some people are using them, we could share some of those together.
That would probably end up being another execute user source exercise.
Right.
Because you've got to, you typically, the ones that are often the most valuable are the list APIs, which means you've got to create a user space
Mm-hmm.
and then deal with it like that.
Okay.
And I'm no expert on this stuff. I know enough to be dangerous.
I've got a bunch of those. Okay, so here's the first one, which is, so this is my monitor program. This is the bulk of it. And really, it's nothing more than I've got a few declares. By the way, you'll see I have my compile instructions at the top. So these are my Z specs for those of you who were at the meeting earlier.
So those pre-compile options, that means when you submit this to compile, it has to go through the job D that 2E uses with the routing data. So it'll pick these up, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So typically this program is inside the model. So for me, I just do a J and submit it like normal. And this ensures that it gets the compile overrides that I want. I can put more or less in here. So this is the core of my program. It happens to just have two parameters. They have to be parameters I pass out. Return code, because, you know, you never know. And this happens to just be, in the event of an SQL error, it gives me back something more than just
The number.
code 0032. But this is the important piece. This right here is the entire thing. So this select statement goes out and it just happens to reformat the job name because the job comes out as a formatted in the formatted 26 character string. So this goes out and substrings the whole thing out so that I get the individual fields. But this is what I'm using.
Yeah.
This is a user-defined, this is the table I'm pulling from. And so I get all the active job info. So this
Russell said he lost audio.
Mics are still all up.
Yeah, the mics are all up. Nothing has changed.
It's,
Oh, you
it's
got
back.
it.
It's back now. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, all right.
So this is the actual table of information that I'm pulling. So this is the equivalent of work active job sent to a spool file.
Oh, nice.
And in this case, I'm only grabbing jobs that are in message wait. So I don't have to worry about, you know, if there's nothing there, then it just falls through. And when it tries to look to see if there's anything to fetch, there's nothing there, so it just drops out. And then I happen to write to a table, so I track every time this happens. And this is also inside here, it's just, it calls my, converts all these to character because they come out as variable. And I write this to a table so that I can track the events when they happen. And that's also the job that determines whether it needs to email them out. Because this runs every minute, I don't want it to be sending, if a job was in the message wait, I don't want to get 100 emails in my help desk because it took somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning, 10 minutes to look at it. So it's got its own brains that say, I've already got this job in message wait. I've already got it for the past, whatever, skip this. It also goes further because when we have an error with our BRMS, it sends a notification to our vendor who's responsible for the BRMS product, and it sends it to their help desk. So I don't have to do it, and that way they log in right away and can address the issue. But that's basically it. There's the entire program. The rest of this is just, most of the code in here is error correction.
Nice.
It's just that one statement. So the other thing I wanted to show you was I'm not gonna hit that because I'll be so.
Oh, this thing. Yeah, this is a nice feature.
So for those of you who are not on ACS, I strongly recommend you get there because.
Yeah, I've seen this, but I haven't played with it too much.
So this is the equivalent of Start SQL.
Mhm.
And just as this is the replacement for PDM.
This is the replacement for what was in Ops Navigator.
This is the replacement for Start SQL. This is like Start SQL on steroids.
Oh, yeah, but they had something like this in the old Ops Navigator as well.
Yeah. They've had the GUI version of Run. Really.
It may not have the port open.
No. Trust me, I live in this thing.
Yeah, but you do it at work or from home?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because there are an awful lot of ports had to be open for all this stuff to work. We went through this exercise when just getting set up for the conference.
No, we're internal. We're running through a VPN. So this is the equivalent of working from home.
Okay, that's right. We had the problem when we tried to set up the no VPN connection before.
So one of the things you can do is there are a host of examples in here. I just did a Control-I to get me the list. I'm just going to type in spool and output queue basic data. Insert that. This select statement right here, select star from QSys to output queue entries basic, will give me, and in this case, it's doing it by output queue name, but I could do it by username and then immediately get a list of all of my output, all of my spool files. I could further order it by create timestamp descending.
I think we lost the audio again.
And it's got to be Zoom because
It's got to be Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Because,
Okay, it's back.
yeah.
It's got to be Zoom because we're on a wired connection for that. I'm speaking through the hardware here, so I'm not on my computer for this one. Anyway, this, if we do a quick. Change that from her. It just realizes that this could be a potentially long-running thing. As we can see, I get just the information. I get the output queue, output name, create timestamp, spool file name, username, user data, status, the size, number of pages, copies, format, and this is the short one. There's another one. If I took the basic off, I take the basic detail portion of it off, and I just do output queue entries. There's even more data that you'll get.
I seem to remember that a lot of this is in relatively recent, in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
they exposed this to
Right,
us.
this is all from the last couple of years. Prior to this, I built something similar to what you did, and I did it through APIs. So
Yeah,
you do create a user space, list the output data to the user space, read it from the user space, read the entries in the user space, and write them to a temporary table.
yeah.
And you've got a display
Mhm.
file over that, and then you can key it in a descending order, and it was great. I completely replaced the work spool file command with this because we used to send data from multiple physical machines. So, and send net spool file is a miserable way to transfer a spool file from machine to machine. So I changed it to do send TCP spool file.
Mhm.
Could you do something similar to this with work object lock?
Yes. Sorry.
Basically any IBMI command that doesn't output to a file automatically. but-
Management object lock info, the second from the bottom.
Oh, very nice.
Now, this
Yeah.
one's probably not as good because I mean, here's a whole thing to show you an object lock info, but there was a lot of stuff behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
Looks
want
nice.
to be able to go in there and look at it, but
That might be simpler to just query the spool file,
Mhm.
which is what I do now.
so yeah, actually, this is really the only piece I want. So to answer your question, take a second. Help if I could type.
I had the same problem too.
It's new fingers.
Yeah.
See, and I told you before, there's object schema, object name, you see their variable character, makes it a pain when you're trying to do something. So if I go a little further down, there's system object schema, system object name. Let's do this. Since I know that should come up with nothing.
This is great. I didn't know this stuff existed. I've been cutting in or screen capturing all this. Very nice.
Yeah, they've done a good job lately of adding the SQL capabilities. Being able to,
I know there happens to be no lock on this. Because there isn't, but I could go one further, and I bet I can take this out entirely. This may take just a second or two, because it's going and looking at every single model. That's every single object it can find with that name, and it's going to give you the lock. I expect it's only going to come back with about 2. Only 2 people working.
So this is
Oh.
this is checking the object lock on the file, right?
Yeah, in this particular case, it's checking the object lock for the data area in the model that gets locked by anybody who logs into a model.
Okay, got it.
It might be a faster way. I had a similar problem. In fact, my first foray into APIs, I basically Mapix tracks users by every time you sign on to the system, they put a lock on one key file. So again, poor man's robot before I was in a place that had robot. In order to do a save, you want to get everything out of the way. So I built a thing where I went out to get every job that had a lock on the system control files. That's why it's CTL. And then I simply went in and I said, kill the damn jobs.
Well, I did this, part of why it's taking so long, because I did
Put in a specific library.
The reason I was asking about the work object lock is typical day for me. Like I'm just a one-man show here, so I put things into production all the time. We don't go through the whole system development life cycle. I just throw it in.
Yeah.
Right. And if it, I throw it into a PTF library and back. Anyway, now I can check myself to see that a file is locked or a print file is locked or a display file is locked. But to check an object like an execute external function, it's very difficult. What I basically do is work active job to a spool file of qinter and qbatch. Then I interrogate the jobs for their stacks.
Oh, yeah.
And then I scan the stacks to see if the object is in the stack. Then I know that someone's running this program. And I can't.
But programs are not as much of a problem as display files, because what will happen is the system will automatically throw the active object into that queue replacement library.
Oh, is that what happens? I just thought it would crash or something. So that's why I always wanted to make sure no one was running this program when I'm implementing.
Now, the thing is this, though, the problem is if you do it like anything with a display file or use as a file, that's when they will crash.
Yes, that I can solve. It's the ones that aren't.
Program objects. Yeah, I think there's a library called queue replace object. And what the system does when it detects one's coming in, it takes the active one, transfers it over, lets everybody keep going because they're not going to disturb the running job. And you get to put yours in. But it means that the existing user is still on the old code.
Yep. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, Russ, there's there's an example of it. And, if you actually type everything out correctly, it works really, really quick. There is a whole host. If you just, it's just Google IBM. It's actually just Google IBM AS400 QSys2, and you'll find links that break down all of the stuff that's in there.
Nice. Okay. Well, there goes my weekend.
And if you check with IBM, you can also look up IBM services. And I mean, there's just tons. If there's something on the system, they're putting more and more and more of it into these SQL. So if you're 7.4 and you'll have just about everything you can imagine, including operating with journals, operating with, like you said, you wanted to get specific details of what, what fields are in a table.
And the SQLs are so much easier than using the APIs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This, the fact that you're going back to 7.2, it's been a few years, but this is still relatively recent.
Yeah, it is. Right.
Because I seem to remember reading about it when they exposed it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that I agree with you on ACS. I was not impressed with the product when they first released it, but these later ones are pretty damn good.
So anyone else online, have you used any of the SQL information for your IBMI?
I just want to circle back to that message weight. This was actually going to be another talk I was going to do whenever. So that whole idea, message weight, send it to your support staff is great. I'm starting to write. I've written it code that now will store that into a file. So this job failed at this time. And I have the job number, so I can actually
Mhm.
tailor the message weight. So after say 5 times, it'll stop. But here's the other part. This is the cool part. What I do is I have a TUI file that stores that job with instructions how to fix. Okay, so if a job fails for me, I'll get the message weight and I'll go in and I'll fix it. And then I'll go to that file and I'll type out what I did to fix the problem. So the next time it runs and it fails, when it sends the email, it will not only just send the email, but it will send what I suggested as a fix in the email, so that help desk no longer needs to continuously call me. If it's empty, then it's like, oh, we don't know what to do, Russ, and then I will fix it, document it, and then going forward, next time an email is produced, they know what to do. And with the caveat that if it didn't fix it, then they would call me. And it has dropped my call time to, I get 90% less calls doing that by logging it. And in a sense, it self-documents itself.
Yeah, you don't have to enter it into their damn knowledge base.
Yeah.
Hope they look it up.
We have a knowledge base, Alloy or something. It takes about 2.5 hours to log into it to find your problem when you're at 2 a.m. Whereas the email just tells you what to do, and it pays for itself, which is free. So it's me. So it paid for itself. But yeah, so little caveats like that. Again, trying to just keep on my theme of if I knew then what I know now. There's another little caveat for you for the message weights.
Yeah, well, in our particular instance, that's not, the message weights that come up are typically maximum number of spool records reached for a spool file. That comes up occasionally, or it's, a severe aberration. Like the number of times that this goes off now, maybe once a month.
Maybe, yeah.
If that. So it's really just, it's an afterthought, and most of those are not, the IT group are the ones who have to respond to all these. There isn't a help desk party. The help desk is us.
Yeah, you're the help desk.
Yeah. So we already have incentive, it's very rare that the same error comes up more than once.
A lot of these they came up fixed too. They were
Yes.
Things that
They were just
done by
poor
the last
logic.
administrator that
Yeah.
didn't do things right, so we came in and fixed them so they don't occur anymore.
Yeah, but we had one where this would have been handy because we did have console and alert. But in order to get that set for the majority of stuff, it would be a little slow for other things. And again, Mapix had a system where if you were trying to do a cost roll, it absolutely positively would not let anybody be around the certain files. And it was not record locking. It was there was a separate conflict file that it built. And if it detected a conflict, bang, it killed the job and they'd send the message wait. And what would happen if I didn't respond to it fast enough, it would be like, pick your highway. The traffic would just back up behind the stuck job.
Here for Jonathan, John, here's one that does a user space. At this point, I had just put it into a program because it was easier.
Yeah.
That way I didn't have to, if I was using this someplace other than inside my sign-on code, if I was using it in a CL or something, I could do all of these without having to have multiple versions of the code. So this is just a real simple RPG program that I've got. Here's the create user space, and it points to the actual API call.
Yeah.
And then I laid out what the parameters were. Then I qualified my user space name. And then here it is calling my program and what is used in it. I was still going through learning I was teaching myself RPG during all of these times. So for those of you who do know RPG, I'm sorry. Dropping off so I can grab a copybook. And then here's the main logic. pass in some fields. I pass in the user space name, the library, the text that I want for it, and whether or not it was successful. I qualify the name so I don't have to sit there and do any concatenation. It's in my data, it's in my data structure. And then I call the create user space and pass in all the necessary fields, which really amounts to the qualified user space name. It's always set to go to max to grow as needed, and the text. And I get back the return code. Let me get this out of my way because I know you don't see it, but I do. And then basically I just return from the error code what the message ID is if it failed, comes out in the return code. And that's all it is. And that's a real simple one for, this is basically the hardest part of dealing with an API
Yeah.
is filling all this information in.
Yeah.
Realizing that there are some aspects of user spaces that do some really weird things. And they take data types that don't always go well in sign-on. I've done this previously by making this kind of code a single user space or a single user source line that just creates this and nothing else.
Yeah.
So that I can call it. And I'll have another one that creates just this. And then I'll have another one that's the actual code, the work happening down here and nothing else. And then I'll just call those individual user source points.
So you have quite a few APIs that you've put in?
Yes.
Yep.
I've done objects. I've done it for getting object, getting lock details, getting spool files, getting. There's some other ones. Those are probably the big ones.
Yeah.
That are used for all sorts of things. So as time went on, I wanted them all in the model so that if somebody else needed to use it for something, they could.
Yeah.
Which we have used in the past, which has made it easy because it was easier to maintain. So each iteration, I've tried something different.
Yeah.
I've even gone so far as to have all the core, did one where all of the core processing for the user spaces were modules, and there was a single service program that contained all of that code because it never had to change.
Yeah.
So I just made it as a service program with the idea of being, oh, here, they can try that. But I wasn't overly happy with the way it turned out. So I went back to the individual components. And now that everything's.
Was it performance or something with a module, using modules?
I wasn't
Or
real happy with the way it looked, and it was difficult to get it to deploy correctly through the change management process. So I just went back to doing this, and then once more and more. At the time, I was on a 6.1 system, so really the fact that I could type SQL and get something to run it all was about the best I could hope for.
See, my use of 2E initially was on my own machine. So since it was not connected to the corporate network in any way, shape, or form, I would simply gen it, real quick, and then sneaker net the stuff across and recompile it.
yeah.
And because we had change management over there, I was dealing with change management at the generated source level,
Right.
which made life, it complicated it in some ways, but it made it easier in other ways. But, and as a result, and I was the only one in the entire, because it was my own machine. And until my developer colleague saw the value of it, he kind of figured my 9404 was a way to heat my office. He kind of looked down his nose at 2E until he realized how fast I could get stuff done. Then I tell you, I converted my one manager. The one had never heard of case tools, never heard of 2E. And when I turned out a maintenance suite in about 2 days, he became a believer.
Yeah, just real quick, here's an example. As I said, I had done it before. So here's These are structures, so I've got a structure defining object description, defining qualified object name, defining the user, error response, structure defining a user space, prototypes for the function calls. In this case, create user space, retrieve object description, and then the actual code. So if we were to look at this and say, okay, well, I look at these, and it tells me, okay, here's the qualified data structure for object description. It's a lot of fields, a lot of type.
Yeah.
And here's my qualified object name. If I look at the prototype, just setting my fields, and lastly, code. So it's just the call, and here I am using substitution parameters for passing everything in. And at that point, I've rewritten it, so those are all gone. That one might be, yeah, that one's still on. Oh yeah, that's part of, maybe one day, maybe next year, we'll talk about this one. This is part of our code that we created so that we could have select star be replaced with select field.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's the way it's supposed to be done. It also means that when we update the table, I don't have to regenerate the entire universe.
Right, because it's using just the fields that are in there.
Yeah.
And it's because we're doing it as a select over the table, which is the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
We aren't using views, so we just have the indexes. And this will ensure that if we decide to add a field to a file and don't want to recompile the universe that week, we can add it, just update the functions that write to it, and can send that out, which traditionally is how you would do it. You could hold the access paths and sign on, add the fields, only have to do the update function. Everything else is held. You can run that, and then the file change can go out, and the other programs can be updated as needed in smaller batches. So, plus it's a more efficient way to write the code anyway.
So are most of your tables now, or most of your files now, SQL tables?
No.
No.
That's part of an ongoing project for a refactoring of the existing ERP system.
We started it over 3 years ago, but then the business has picked up in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Tremendously. And we just don't have the time.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And in our case, basically, the majority of our tables were vendor provided. We weren't gonna tinker with that.
Yeah.
And our stuff, we never really did. Well, there were 1 or 2 true SQL tables in the system, but we never really got away from DDS. Now, we were using SQL quite a bit, you know, and I had my one colleague wrote a complete program where it was all inserts and updates. Now, there are pros and cons. Some of that stuff, it gets a little hard to read, and a hell of a lot of stuff to type. And I tell you, I'm intrinsically lazy. If I don't have to type a lot, I won't.
So how about people on the phones are on, how many of you are any of you moving directly to SQL tables in your 2E application? Or are you still staying with DDS? Do you have plans to move? Do you create new functions with SQL tables? You know, where does SQL stand for you guys?
Still all DDS, and I'd like to learn, go to SQL, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Because they did write a fairly decent conversion process, so you don't have to recompile the world when you do go to SQL.
So how does it handles level checks then?
Yes, it does. It actually has no level checks when you do the conversion. And when you convert, you don't go to SQL, you go to, let's say DDL, I believe. You have DDL, what are the two? I don't have mine open in front of me, but you have two different options, and one is to go to SQL directly, and the other is to use the SQL. Oh, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't remember it. But it's intended for conversion only. So, let's see. Do you have a model open yet?
No,
Okay.
I've stopped share. Converting an existing table from
It's DDL, that's what it is.
DDS to DDL.
Yeah.
Is really very straightforward. In fact,
Right.
You can do it you can make the change without having to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
RPG will still open the level identifiers will stay the same.
And they've used the same field names in there. So
Yes.
all that is remains.
The only things the only time you're going to have problems has to do with how it handles, if you add the long column names
Mm-hmm.
as part of your conversion to DDL, which, by the way, should be something you want to do,
Right.
because your end users, it's a whole lot easier to say select the name from the field you're used to seeing it in the model versus select, oh crap, this is ABAACD.
Yeah, I know.
The thing about it is the SQL naming convention doesn't allow things like spaces,
Right.
fields to begin with a number, the column names to begin with a number, and it doesn't like special characters. So what sign-on does is it replaces all of those with an underscore. That's fantastic until you run into the following scenario. I've got a field called customer discount and the percentage sign, and I've got another field that's customer discount $sign.
Oh,
Two
okay.
separate
Yep.
fields in
Mhm.
the model. However, sign-on's naming convention will convert that to customer underscore discount underscore underscore and customer underscore discount underscore underscore.
And you got a problem.
And yes.
Yeah. Then you have, yeah.
You now have a problem.
Mhm.
It's worse than having 2 days in the same room.
Yeah. So there are a few of those gotchas like that. Yes.
Yeah.
But overall, it actually, like you said, it's a pretty smooth process to convert over.
When we did it for the initial pass to make sure as a proof of concept we could get away with it, we did it, and I think we had we had no problems converting. I think I was able to, our initial pass was we made a copy of the model, converted all of the tables and files to DDL,
Right.
recompiled them. And then I think I copied all the data from one system into that test environment and then put the production program library in there and had it open up a table. And it worked great.
Yeah.
And then our next test was when we went to the selects, created a file, converted all the selects to be select field name, agenda program that did a display file over it, had zero problems with that, added 3 fields, and they have to be added at the end of the file. Because that's what you're supposed to do when you add fields to a SQL table. You have to add them at the end, otherwise you can end up again with sometimes weird results.
Yeah.
Especially here because it has a data structure of the original table. So it needs the fields to stay in that order. So if you ever reorder the columns, then you have to regen everything that touches it. But we added it to the end, ran the display file again, and the display file opened with 0 errors. And level checking is turned on. But it didn't care because it's reading from the table. So you really don't get the kind of level checking errors that you would normally because you don't have file identifiers in there. If you create a program that does SQL and you do a display program references, I don't remember ever seeing it have tables listed.
Probably not, because the tables are not being called by the program. They're being called by
The SQL engine.
that gets embedded into your code.
Yes. Some other reasons you want to do it, especially for batch processes, are because SQL by default does record blocking. So if I'm reading 100,000 records, I'm reading at a block of 32 or 64K, something like that. So it'll fill that up in a single read. So you might be pulling 10 records for every IO.
Oh, yeah.
And then it processes those 10 records in memory and then grabs another block of 10. So depending on the record size, you can see some improvement when reading. Another advantage to doing SQL is you can kiss data decimal errors goodbye, because SQL does data validation at write as opposed to read. So
Nice.
if you have a situation where somebody copies data from a
Mhm.
flat file into a table and then reads it, you can almost guarantee we've all had that dreaded data
Not
decimal
just a
error.
flat file from an email or something, and paste it
Yeah.
onto,
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah.
screen. Oh, God, it's just got funky characters and blows it.
Yep.
So the big thing about it is it does it that way, which means that you'll never have that error because it'll error out trying to write the data.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is a much better time to have that.
Yeah, we had issues when people try to cut and paste addresses into, and that would knock us right out of the box. Yeah, that would be at night typically when it was found.
Yep.
So you don't see it until someone opens up that and also.
Yeah, and we're trying to do something with the resulting work.
So those are just a couple of the caveats, the pluses, the minuses. I have been in places where we have converted some of the stuff from DDS to DDL and never had a problem. And this was on a system of more than 1,000 tables and 20-plus-year-old code.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know where I was.
Yep.
So we did it there, and again, never had a problem with it. It's just, like I said, other than those weird naming things, those are the things that came back to haunt us. So that's where it had its issues. I don't recommend going full SQL where you switch to using long column names and long table names. Because
Have you seen issues with that?
because if you do a create dupe object,
Yeah.
it duplicates, you might get a new system name, but the long table name stays the same. So it fails to do the create dupe object because if you've got a name longer than 10 characters, create dupe object isn't the problem because you're changing the 10 character name. But if it actually has a longer name in the system, it will fail because you can't have two objects of the same name in the same library.
Yeah.
So I don't really recommend that. The other caveat with SQL is anybody who has a multi-member table.
Right.
SQL does not allow
Multiple members, yeah.
Yeah, will not.
Not by
allow you to
default,
create a
yeah.
Multi-member table.
Yeah.
So if you have that kind of logic and that kind of processing, you may have to evaluate that at a later date to come up with an alternate solution. I mean, you can do it, it can be done, but SQL doesn't like it, which means you'll have to do some work to get around it. And you probably don't want multi-member files as part of your production system that you're accessing directly with the program anyway.
Not with that kind of program. However, the Brits used multiple member files when they wrote the reporting piece in sign-on financials. And they were through the physicals and the logical as well.
Yeah, it gets really messy when you start dealing with things like that. So
Mhm.
if you're going to play that kind of a game,
Yeah.
you really want to evaluate, because that is really an older way of looking at it, and it really doesn't lend itself well to,
Modern programming. Yeah.
that being said,
Mhm.
you can still do it because
The 400 lets you, or that IBMI lets you do, the power lets you do it. That's what it
it's not
is.
even the power lets you do it. It's
Yeah.
SQL lets you do it. SQL has an alias. An alias
Mhm.
allows you to define an alternate member as the one that it's accessing.
Oh, you don't have to do override database file. That's the way I always conquered it. If I were, at least with interactive SQL, I want to do is,
Yeah, you can do it with an override. If you're doing it through SQL, then you would do it as creating an alias.
oh, okay.
So you would define an alias at the beginning, and your SQL would always use the alias, and then you would just change what the alias might be referencing to say, I'm going to reference this member, this member, this
Oh.
member, this member. It's alias is the equivalent of override database.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's its version for SQL.
All right,
That's been my stream of consciousness moment.
So we're pretty much to the end of our session. I think we had some good times here. We got to look at what's going on with evolveIT. I hope you guys all spend a little bit more time going through the rest of the exercise, playing with it, and give us some evaluation about things that you'd like to see it to make it improved. We want to make this a tool that is useful. And I'm planning to use it myself in some of my, I do go programming at many different locations. So I'd like to be able to use it wherever I'm going to help me understand and learn the systems. So I'd like to get your guys' input.
Yeah, I already sent an email to John. I definitely want to get involved in that.
Yep.
We have a new director, and the one thing he's come back to me and said is we lack documentation on our application. And I keep saying, well, TUI, you don't really need the documentation because the way I code, it's kind of English. But showing him this would mean I wouldn't need to document anything. So.
Yeah, exactly. And this, management really likes this because, it's GUI and it's got graphics in it.
It's got pretty colors.
Yeah, it's got pretty colors. So then they start thinking, boy, this is like the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, I'm cynical, but they're all impressed by flashing lights.
they are. Yeah.
Oh, and Russell, one more point to yours. Before you go sending, pointless emails to Broadcom, and this is, I've said this before to everybody, get on the Broadcom communities site for Plex 2E, because there are a lot of people, and some of them, not everybody who comes to the convention comes to the to this is on there. So it's a great place to just ask questions and get answers.
So is this like the old symposium that I always wondered what happened to that?
Yes, it is what Symposium became. It became Communities when it was under CA, then it got moved to Broadcom and it became Broadcom. Communities.broadcom.com. You do not need to have a 2E site license in order to go there. It is free to sign up. It is free to post. It is
Maybe
free
if you throw it in the chat either today or tomorrow. Looks like most people have dropped off, but yeah, just where you grab it.
Yeah.
So you say it's
communities.broadcom.com. And you just sign up for the Plex 2E, and it's a great spot to just ask questions. Broadcom has an idea there. You can say, hey, I want an enhancement here, and then they vote on it. Theoretically, they work in an agile method. So
Yeah.
No, they work at a very, very slow method.
Raghu is one person. So, and they don't really, I don't think they really want him doing anything. But there are lots of ideas up there.
There are.
Some of them are really, really good.
I mean,
especially
just the
finding-
2E interface, it's been this way for years. There's so much more enhancements that can be done. Get to the action diagram from the gen and build screen would be beautiful. Putting a command CMD as a user source would be great. Simple things
Yeah,
like
you
that.
know, you've got
Yeah.
that. I'll give you some of the ones that I put out there. Since I couldn't wait for them to do it, I did it myself, but there is one out there. Since we're moving to DDL, do a select field name instead of select star, which is the way
Yeah.
we're supposed to do it.
Uh-huh.
Out there is additional data types like variable character, variable graphic. I'd like to see them get rid of, upgrade the ILE engine, which is really not an ILE engine. It's really just
I convert.
It's just mounted at the tail end of the generation task. It doesn't really do much except give us access to the ILE generator. But variable character, variable graphic would be fantastic as default data types. Even better if we could actually go that far and then say, hey, I want this in Unicode, which would mean I could write one database that would be accessible throughout the world. Because now I'm using standard external world character types. Variable character, variable graphic is how everybody else in the world does it. It does characters. But in order to do that, they have to rewrite the ILE engine.
And they're not going to rewrite the ILE engine. Yeah.
The other problem is that one of the other things that we have to address is the fact that RPG has been stabilized for the better part, has been stabilized for this entire century. So it will never be enhanced any further. COBOL is still COBOL 85. So those are what are holding us back. If they were to go, well, we're abandoning RPG and COBOL ILE and COBOL, and we're just going with RPG4 and COBOL ILE, it would be a vast improvement. And the thing is there is zero issue with going, I'm going to change my generation from COBOL to COBOL ILE. I'm going to change my generation from RPG to RP4 and just go through the mod and just go, okay, change the generation mode on all these programs. Only thing that has to be updated is any user source has to be moved to the ILE version of user source. That's it. It will generate exactly the same. We did it. We did that and are said to convert the whole model from COBOL to RPG.
Yes, I'm concerned about doing that. I'm scared because I generate RPG because I like to use debug, and I haven't really gone into the ILE world of bindings and all that fancy stuff.
You don't even
And then I also have changing the source through preprocessors. So
okay, well, so I'll give you the quick thing with that. If you do that, the first thing I absolutely recommend you do is you're going to be abandoning PDM. You're going to go to get Rational Developer. Yes, it's $1,000 a year per license. However, it has by far one of the best debuggers
It is.
you will ever deal with. You can debug batch job without having to jump through hoops to make it happen. You can debug
Web services.
without having to jump through hoops.
interesting.
It
Okay.
is. I recommend it if you're going to do any kind of ILE, that it is so much better of a debugger.
You can get it for 60 or 70 days for free to try it out and then convert the license, but it is so worth it.
Yeah.
It can do everything PDM does.
And
For
more.
those of you who generate, if there's anybody on who still generates COBOL, it overcomes the biggest issue with PDM, which is, your source has exceeded the size of the PDM editor. Which anybody who does COBOL can do on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
And I've done it in RPG, which is and impressive in and of itself.
Oh, yeah, yeah, there was one program in Mapix that exceeded it.
Don't have that problem.
Yeah.
And you can do so much more.
Wow.
It is absolutely worth the money.
All right.
It really is.
The only
Yeah.
problem is that it's a hard sell because you can
It's
pick up,
$1,000.
yeah, it's $1,000 versus 300 for a copy of Visual Studio. And,
But you can issue, it's got the debugger built into it. It's got a whole bunch of other things built into it. And you can edit all of your code. You can be editing code offline.
yeah, but it's $1,000 a year and that's the sticking point.
And you can get to the IFS, you can do stuff on the IFS.
Yeah. You can do the IFS, you can get messages. When you do
Yeah.
submit compiles from there, you can see the end results of your compiles. Yeah.
It's the one place where they have not priced it right.
Yeah.
I understand why it's not priced that way because it's open source and it's not only that, but if you do Java development, you do any of that kind of stuff, well, you can do it all from inside this editor. Hook it to Git and
Yeah.
other things to serve as your repository. It's based on Eclipse, which means you have access to the entire Eclipse world.
Yeah, but therein lies the problem. They based it on Eclipse. So they wrote the add-ins. Everything else is, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've got a license to it because we bought it at CD before I left the first of the year. But, beyond that, and it depends on how much I do. It's just the principle of it, because
When you do screen design, you'll love it. If you have to edit a DDS file for some reason, screen, it's nice to be able to almost get full WYSIWYG. And you can actually be doing your screens, because we do have a few screens like that.
okay.
And then when you're actually reading the source code,
I mean,
I mean, it's
Much cleaner.
much cleaner. Yeah.
It's just that, the thing is if they want to, IBM complains that nobody adopted it. Well, if you want to get it adopted, you got to price it to where you can sell it. So don't come complaining to me, because there were times where we didn't have two nickels to rub together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's a hard sell in a small shop.
Sure.
Yes, it is. And a lot of our shops are small,
Yeah, I mean,
We have Russell. I mean, he's the only man in his shop.
yeah, we're four,
Yeah.
but
That's three more than I had for 4 years.
and I've been in big shops where they wouldn't do it either.
Yeah.
And you're talking for developers. You had an operations staff too, didn't you? No. Oh, that was at 4 to.
All right.
We don't handle from the.
Russell, Mark, I think you guys are the last guys on. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Take
We'll see
care.
you tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks for the meeting. That was great.
All right.
Mark, we'll get in touch.
All right. Sounds good.